Yeah, first question's from Brian. He's got two questions. He says, what are your suggestions for football Bundesliga related books? And what is your favourite stadium in terms of food and beer? Tough to beat Freiburg with their Rothaus beer. So first things first, books. I mean, I've got such an obvious go-to one, which is Tor by Uli Hesse. It's like the Bible of German football, especially football history. Which is the most obvious one. The other one that stands out to me is Played in Germany by Kit Holden, who a friend of the podcast. We actually had him on the show, a bonus show, to talk about the book. I kind of reviewed the book talking to him. It's a great, really good read. So, Brian, if you're looking for book ideas for Christmas, I could definitely recommend Kit's book, and you could probably dig out the podcast interview I did with him as well. So that would be my suggestion.
I liked Uli Hesse's book on Beckenbauer. We had Uli on the show to talk about Beckenbauer. I think it's just called Franz, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, just Google Uli Hesse, Franz Beckenbauer. And he also did an excellent book on Bayern Munich, on the history of Bayern Munich, which I think I would highly recommend as well, on top of the books that you've recommended. Non-Bundesliga. Looking at this book right now, I have my bookshelf with the soccer books are right next to me here. The Ball is Round by, what's his name? David Goldblatt. Know David Goldblatt quite well. David is a great guy. I've actually traveled with him to Russia for a conference once. Spent a week with him in Moscow. And his historical books on the game are very in depth and very good. Some of the best writing out there, period. And I can highly recommend his Ball is Round. I think it has been updated since I read it. I think it's 1,000 pages. So take some time to read that one.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of non-Bundesliga ones, the one that always pops in my head has kind of left quite an impression was Brilliant Orange by David Winner, which is about the rise of Dutch football, and it's a really good book that talks about the kind of ethos of the country and how the kind of geography of Holland has kind of really, the Netherlands has really impacted and dictated how the nation plays football, and kind of how where total football came from with Jogi Cruyff and Ajax and all that history. So it's a really fascinating book as well, which I definitely recommend. So some books recommendations there. Next question, Manuel, for Brian, was about the food. Now, I always feel a bit odd about this when people ask me about food and beer suggestions at football clubs, because my experience as a journalist is showing up, running through a crowd to get into the stadium in time, wolfing down some canteen food in the stadium, and then leaving at around midnight or 1 a.m. wondering if anything's still open outside. You and I were at the Champions League final for Dortmund versus Real Madrid, and we ran around with Dan White and trying to find somewhere to eat in London for about an hour, if I'm not mistaken. And that is more often the case. The example. I know there are some journalists who go to games specifically to kind of go as part of the fan experience. In fact, Matt Ford would probably be perfect for this because he does that quite a lot. But I don't really go to games as a fan, so I never really get an opportunity to just kind of mull around the stadiums and take in the food. Only thing I can think of recently was when I was at Dortmund, and obviously they have the not sauerkraut, the currywurst, which is obviously quite famous for it, and that is good. That of course is good, and you can get that in stands outside the stadium and things. But yeah, anything come to mind for you?
Speaking of Dan and I, we're always, when we cover a game together, we're always sneaky, and we try to sneak in a beer and a sausage before we get the press tribune, because our experience is that the canteen food, as you call it quite rightly, is not very good. So I haven't been called out for it yet, but Dan once got called out apparently at Union Berlin because he was having a beer and a sausage with his press pass visible, and one of the security guys hollered at him. It's like, no drinking on the job. And he's like, well, this is part of being a journalist, that you experience the fan culture. So we hit our press passes when we went to Union Berlin together, and ate a sausage and drank a beer before the Bayern game. And I do think, the bratwurst at Union Berlin has been particularly good. They have one that's just outside the stadium that's filled with cheese, which is just delicious. Their beer is really good too. It's on tap. So that's always been a really positive experience. In terms of press box, Bayern Munich do fresh tap Weissbier post-match. You can even get a glass of wine and a tapped Helles there as well, which I think is crazy. It's a great tradition, in my opinion. I think Bavaria is the only place.
Fits in very well with the aesthetic of the Allianz Arena, in my opinion.
Yeah, the red wine, sure. I do think it's a great tradition, though, and I don't think there's many other press boxes that have that, where they tap beer. But this is Bavaria. It's a different level, right? Having a beer, having a Feierabend beer is actually a really big work tradition. When I work construction, you were allowed to have a beer at 5 o'clock in the last final hour of your workday with your colleagues. And that's a Feierabend beer, and it's actually a big part of work tradition there. So I think Bayern Munich just have taken that to the press box as well. And that fresh tap Weissbier is delicious. And then coming to think, like Stefan, this has actually been something that I really want to do at some point, and it's a little bit of a more elaborate project, and I've done my research already. I want to find out which place in Germany has the best döner. So I've had a döner at every Bundesliga club location already. And, there's a few that have stood out to me. Köln is really good. Berlin, obviously. Leipzig is amazing. And so one day I actually want to do a Substack article ranking the best döners in Germany. It's actually something that Munich is terrible at. They do terrible döner there. But yeah.
Get good Asian food in Munich, though.
And Italian food is great too in Munich, but the döner is horrendous.
In terms of beer, I was trying to think there. A few things popped in my head. In Hamburg, if you go to St. Pauli game, it's obviously right in the city, so you can go to so many St. Pauli bars and kind of dive bars and stuff around the stadium, which you can definitely go to. But Haas-Foul, obviously a little further out the city, and you get the train. I don't know what the train station is, but you get a train, and it's about... Well, possibly. It might just be called that, yeah. But it's about a 20-minute walk from the stadium, and when you get to the station, there's kind of kiosk and stuff there where people congregate, they grab some beers, and then they walk to the stadium, and then that long walk through the kind of park is there's so many kind of bins, and there's people who will take your beers and stuff off you. So it's quite a good little system they've got in place there, where you can get off the train, grab some beers, and because you're in Hamburg, you'll have Astra, which is their lager, which is really nice, actually. I really like Astra. Grab a couple of bottles of that and walk along to the stadium. It's the best way to do it. And that's probably one of the best kind of stadium experiences, I would say, in terms of walking to the stadium. Because I was just thinking there when you talked about Leipzig. Leipzig's not great. It's a long walk from the station, and you're just walking through a city. It's not particularly appealing. Dortmund, you have to get the train or the kind of shuttle train thing, or it's always packed, which is fine, but it's not great. Munich, miles out, so you can't walk there. But yeah, so Haas-Foul is probably one of the few ones I can think of where it's you walk down a nice park avenue, enjoying the beers, and it's all kind of laid out for you. So that'd be my
Union is great too, because you walk through the forest and you see the smoke of all the different barbecue places come up. And that's always really good. And then 1860, because they're right downtown, and they actually have amazing beer selection as well. That's a couple shout outs. And 1860 has good stadium food as well. They have the Leberkäse sandwich. I highly recommend. It's really good. Just want to come in. And Frankfurt has a great beef sausage as a stadium sausage. So there's another one that I really enjoy. Stuttgart also has a huge bar at the stadium. I remember that. I've not been to Stuttgart in a while, which is really good actually. You can definitely grab a beer and some lunch and stuff. I think the Stuttgarter Weisse, I think it's called. It's good beer. Yeah, so that's good as well. But it's Germany. You won't struggle for beer.